60 seconds, 60 seconds.
I got it. What I did for
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
what does that say?
Two people for each. Five, four, three, two, one. And game over. Game over. So, was there anyone that was able to get 10 different people to sign in their paper? You got 7 people. 7 different people. All right? Anyone get more than 7? Looks like you're the winner. Let's give them a hand. So, as you were going around the room, were there things that you saw on other people's papers that you were like, man, why didn't I think of that? Or I could have put that down too. What were some of those things that you saw on someone else's paper and you said, you know what, I should have wrote that down. Why didn't I think of that? God. Okay, you saw that on someone's paper and said, I should have wrote down God. All right. Honesty. You saw that on someone's paper and said, you know what, I didn't put honesty down. I should have. Someone said health. All right. So you saw, being healthy was something that you saw on someone else's paper and said, man, I could have put that down. One more thing. Positivity. Right? So you saw that on someone's and you thought about that, right? There was one more I heard. Fun. Right? So those are some things that we saw in other people's papers that we could have written down on our own, but for whatever reason, we just didn't. But those were great ideas. As you were going around the room, were there things, let me stop for a second. Was there anyone that has a totally blank piece of paper where you weren't able to find any connections at all? All right, so everybody was at least able to find at least one connection. All right? As you were going around the room, were there things that were either difficult to find someone to sign on, or you weren't able to find someone to sign on at all? And what were those things? Caffeine? Please raise your hand if you value caffeine, even if it wasn't written. I'm putting both hands up. We'll give you 2 more things that were either difficult to find someone to sign on, or you didn't find someone to sign on. What was that? Good pension. If a good pension is important to you or of value to you, even if you didn't write it down, please raise your hand. Yeah, retirement pension's pretty close. Yeah. One more thing that was difficult or you didn't find someone to sign on. Your bed, right? So having a place to sleep or being in a state of rest, if that is important to you, particularly after coming off of a shift, please raise your hand if that's of importance or value to you. All right? Cool. So what is the obvious moral to this activity, or what is the lesson that I'm trying to get us to think about in this particular activity? Why would I do this activity at the beginning of the start of this particular conversation around diversity and cultural competence and all this stuff? So what am I trying to get at by this activity? We have a lot in common. Right? We share the same values.
We're also very diverse.
And we're also very diverse at the same time. Right?
Different belief structures.
So people with different belief structures. All right? I will submit to you, and I don't know, how many people have been in a diversity training before? All right? You are the people I have to heal. Because a lot of times in those diversity trainings, they spend a lot of time talking about our differences and don't spend enough time talking about those things that make us most similar. And I would submit to you that I believe that as human beings, we are way more similar than we are different. And that those differences we will call obstacle illusions. Those differences are obstacle illusions. And so when I had you write down those values, I'm curious to know, I've done this a number of times, and so I'm going to try this and see if this is also true for you, as it has been for other groups that I've done, right? And so I'm curious, of the 5 things that you wrote down, did any one of those things directly relate to your race or your ethnicity? Did any of those 5 things directly relate to your race or ethnicity? No? I'm having a lot of people shaking their head no. All right? So, did any of those 5 things have anything to do with your gender or your gender expression? Okay, a lot of people are still shaking no. So I have no takers on your race or ethnicity. I have no takers on your gender expression. And so for this one, what I'd like for you to do, if you can say yes to this, I want you to jump up and down, wave your hands in the air like you don't care if you can say yes to this. And did any of those 5 things that you wrote down have anything directly related to your socioeconomic status? Okay, so I have 2 people who what does a fox say? Anybody else? And by the way, I love Yo Gabba Gabba. I have a little 3-year-old niece, and she goes like this. She's, how old are you, Zoe? I am 3. So we watch Yo Gabba Gabba. I don't know if you know that, but it's really psychedelic. What was the one from the 70s? Marty's with the big pumpernickel guy. Marty Croft's something. You know what I'm talking about, right? Sid and Marty Croft's show, but then there was the psychedelic puffin stuff. Yes, thank you. I was like, I'm going crazy. It's the modern day puffin stuff. HR puffin stuff. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. So why is it, do you think, that out of all the things that you value, that folks did not put stuff about their gender down, people did not put stuff about their race down, and the majority of us did not put anything about our social economic status down as one of those 5 things that we value? Why do we not do that? Because they're not the most important things. I will let you off the hook. You did not write those things down because you're smart. You're brilliant. You did exactly what I asked you to do, which was what? What did I ask you to do? Write down what is important to you. Right? Now, I find it very interesting. What I'm not saying is that gender is not important. I'm not saying that our racial or ethnic background is not important. I'm not saying that is not important. What I am suggesting is that the things we wrote down are more important to us as individuals than those other things are. Because those other things are not as important to us, but they're extremely important to other people. For example, Barack Hussein Obama, the President of the United States, shows up ethnically as what? How does he show up ethnically or racially? He's African American or black, right? I kind of use them interchangeably. By the way, I am black, so if you want to, I had to say that sometimes because I don't want to scare people, right? Oh, he's black. Right? So he shows up as black. Is that the sum total of who he is? No. Right? So his father is a black man from Kenya. His mother is a white woman from Kansas. They got together and they Obama. And so we could say that President Obama is a black man. We could also say that he is biracial or mixed, right? And if we follow the insanity of the racial logic, as much as he is black, he is also mixed, which also means that he is equally as much white as he is those other two things. Now, can you imagine how people would receive the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama, if he walked around and said that he was a white man? It's hard enough for some people to believe he was born, but that's a whole nother. And so our outside world oftentimes tries to dictate to us what is important to us. And what I'd like to suggest is that those values that don't have a race, a creed, a color, or even its own consciousness, those things are the things that are most important to all of us. And so as we move together and as we work with our clients, we have to understand that they are oftentimes living out what has been planted in their lives by both individuals as well as systems. And we'll talk about both of those as we continue on through our presentation. All right? How many people have heard of T-Pain? Anyone know who T-Pain is? Okay, I got a couple of takers on T-Pain. You want to just kind of give a synopsis of T-Pain? So he's a rapper with a fake voice. He uses his computer-animated voice, auto-tune, to sing his songs. And he creates these urban melodic tapestries that are on that are intricate and well-defined, that help to define the urban experience in America. And he uses these melodic tunes to create this wonderful mosaic of urban experience music. And he comes up with songs with the titles like, I'm in love with a stripper. No, these aren't very good songs at all. I'm just joking. But he does use that computer animated voice to make his songs. And I figure if T-Pain can make those, use that computer animated voice for evil, I certainly can use it for good. All right? And so I'm going to show a video clip. And in this video clip, they use that computer automated voice, and so there's also subtitles at the bottom, but that becomes somewhat annoying to folks when you just can't get the drift of what the speaker is trying to relate. What I would suggest is, as you watch this, think of some of the things that you hear from the speaker. What is the context that the speaker is operating in, and how that might relate to our discussion around diversity and cultural competence and that kind of stuff. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. Let us move on in these powerful days. These days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to mountain top and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not be there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not feeling anything. I succeed the glory of 1960 students all over the South. were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream. Taking the whole nation back to those great grounds of democracy, which were guaranteed by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. We've got some difficulties ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop and I've looked over and I see the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Who was the speaker in that particular presentation? And I'm not referring to the computer animated voice, but who was the speaker in that particular? It was who? Martin Luther King. That is very close. It was Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, that's even closer. It was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., even closer. It was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. One of the things that we have to do, particularly when we talk about this period of time and we talk about this particular individual, is that if we don't talk about if we don't recognize the fact that he was a reverend, we miss a large part of what the movement was about. So the civil rights movement was not just about people having civil rights, but it was also the fact that Dr. King knew that if we wanted to move forward, we had to knit all of our souls together for a common cause. And so the only way, or the best way he knew to do that, was through his religious traditions. And so he knew that we had to knit our souls together, and that was the best way he knew how to tell his story, his experience. So what were some of the things that you heard in this particular presentation? What were some things that just kept coming to you, or things you thought about as this was playing? Okay, so religion. Okay. Promise. All right. What's that? Hard days ahead. That he'll fear no man. Individuality. All right. He's seen the mountaintop. He has no fear of any man. What's that? I may not get there with you. Can anyone tell me what speech this was of Dr. King? Okay, let's pause. I'll say this. If you can only think of one speech, you have some homework to do. So does anyone know what speech this might be from Dr. King? Okay, so the one that we always talk about is I Had a Dream. I will tell you that he had more than one speech. And unfortunately, this isn't it. Right? This was referred to as the mountaintop speech. Now, the thing about the mountaintop speech that really sends chills down my spine is that he says things like, I may not make it with you, but we will make it together. Right? He says, I've seen the promised land. And I find it interesting that he uses that metaphor, that phraseology around the promised land and mountaintop, because it seems to me that he's going back into his religious tradition to bring back an epic story of people, of a group of people's epic struggle out of bondage into the land of freedom. And so he's going back into his religious tradition to do that, and he's mirroring the struggle with that epic struggle that we oftentimes see right around this particular time of the year on TNT with Charlton Heston, right? Charlton Heston's 10 Commandments, let my people go out of my cold dead hands. No, this is NRA speech. I get those things. But Charlton Heston has that movie, The 10 Commandments, right? That talks about this journey. Now, here's the thing that I thought was most interesting about the mountaintop speech. The mountaintop speech is the last speech that Dr. King gives before his assassination. So Sunday night, he's giving this speech, and he's saying, I may not make it with you, but we as a people will make it. And he wakes up that Monday morning to catch an assassin's bullet in his neck. I think that is absolutely profound. But the thing that he also gives us in this speech is this hope. And he says, what to us? What is his charge to us? He says he won't make it, but what? We as a people will make it. He doesn't say black people will make it. He doesn't say white people will make it. He doesn't say Hmong people will make it. He doesn't say Somali people will make it. He says we as a people will make it together. Now, one of the things that I know about Charlton Heston had a part 2 to his movie. What we do know is that just like Dr. King, Moses doesn't make it into the promised land, but the people do make it. And so the new leadership in the promised land is having problems with Moses' people, because Moses' people are complaining and they're murmuring. And they're saying, when Moses was here, we had a pillar of fire and a pillar of smoke, and he would touch a rock and water would come out. There'd be bread that would fall from the skies. What's wrong with you guys? And so finally, Joshua and Caleb, the new leaders of the children of Israel, stand up in front of 2 million people. They stand up in front of them and they make this declaration, and then they walk off the stage. They stand in front of these people and they say, Moses is dead! And then they walk off. Why was it necessary for this new leadership to make a declaration of something that everybody already knew? Why was that important? So they could recognize change. Now, I mean this in the most sincere, and I mean no disrespect by this next statement, but Dr. King is dead. Gandhi, dead. Mother Teresa, dead. Nelson Mandela, dead. What's that? What about Elvis? I'm not sure that Elvis was really a political leader that actually changed the lives of individuals, but he did look really good on the Velvet Picture. Right? Are those people coming back? Is Elvis and Tupac coming back? I would say no. People people are sitting and waiting on Dr. King to help us with the next level of this movement. And I want to tell those folks, keep holding your breath until you pass out. Because Dr. King's not coming back unless Dr. King becomes you. Mother Teresa's not coming back unless you become Mother Teresa. Gandhi won't be here making peace unless you're making peace. Did you know that other people's freedoms are hiding behind our embarrassment? Other people's freedoms are hiding behind our embarrassments. How many times have we been out in public and we've seen something that was either, gender related or race related or just bad human experiences, and we say, oh, that was bad. That's horrible to ourselves. But we've not intervened in the situation. I am up in Coon Rapids, which is, one of the birds of the cities. I went to the dollar store. And I'm at the dollar store, and I don't like the dollar store. And the reason I don't like the dollar store is because you get tricked every time you go to the dollar store. Because everything in the store is $1. So you say, I can get 100 of these because it's only $1. So I end up spending $100, right? So I'm in the dollar store, and there's a couple in front of me. And their race or ethnicity is not important, but it is important. So I'll talk about that as a part of the story as well. So it's an African-American couple with a small baby. And so the dude has his pants hanging down. You can see like this much underwear, that kind of stuff. And he's got a t-shirt with the shoulders out, and a hat to the side. And the young lady is wearing pajama pants and house shoes, with a silk rag on her head and that kind of stuff, with the baby. And we're all in the dollar store together. There are lots of people in the dollar store. And so the lady pulls out this apple juice and puts it on the counter. While she does that, the guy that she's with, and they can't be over 20, right? They've been pretty young folks. And so she puts the juice on the counter, and the guy gets distracted while she's doing that. And he's looking at something, and then she pulls out her EBT card. Are most folks familiar with what an EBT card is? Okay, so that's the government card that you use to get food for your family, right? So she's in mid-swipe of her EBT card. The guy who was distracted is now paying attention to her, and he sees her in mid-swipe of this EBT card, and he says, "You stupid, woo! How are you going to use that? How are you going to use our EBT card on $1? I got $1 right here, you stupid." And he's cussing around, and he's puffing up, and he's pointing fingers and stuff. And what do the rest of the people in the store say to themselves? Say, wow. What else do we say? None of my business. People are looking at prices at the dollar store. Right? We say, none of my business. That becomes the mantra. And I'm just like him. I'm like, none of my business. And then the voice speaks. And the voice says, say something. And I'm like, why do I have to say something? Why does it have to be me? And the voice is, saying its voice. And so I make a deal with the voice. I said, voice, if they're still outside by the time I'm done with my transaction, then I'll say something, right? And so I'm taking my time with my transaction, and the lady's looking at the cashier, she's looking at me like, would you just swipe the card, right? And so finally I swipe the card, I get my stuff, I'm headed outside, and the dude is on the phone. So, and he's still puffed up, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, can't talk to him because he's on the phone. But, boys, if he gets off the phone before I get to my car, I'll say something, right? Now, mind you, I don't do this on a regular basis, right? I don't know what to say. I don't have anything. I don't have a repertoire. I don't practice this kind of stuff. But I'm compelled to do this. And so with that deal that I made with the voice, so I start walking towards my car, and the guy hangs up his phone call, and he's still at the young lady. And now this was the part that really captured me when they were in the store with me. When he's cussing her out and he's pointing his fingers and he's being all rough with her, guess what she says? Nothing. Which leads me to believe that this is probably not the first time this has happened. Right? So now he's gotten off the phone, they're going into the grocery store, and now I'm trailing behind him. Now, I am smart enough to know that if you want to have a conversation with somebody, you don't walk up behind them and you tap them on the shoulder saying, I want to talk to you. That's a recipe for disaster. So I follow them into the store, I go around an aisle so that I can meet them face to face. So I walk up to the guy and I said, sir, can I talk to you for a second? Now, mind you, the voice was real active when it was telling me to go talk to this dude, but now the voice has gotten silent, so I got nothing, right? So I'm standing here in front of the dude, and the dude is like, what? Right? I mean, he just got bigger, right? And I said, sir, it's all good. I just want to talk to you just for a second. Can you just step over here with me, right? So I asked him to take 2 steps over to give the social cue for the mom and the baby to give us a little extra space, right? So we're in the middle of this grocery store, and I'm standing here. Now, I'm waiting for the voice to give me the instructions on what to say, because I don't know what to say. And I got this dude who's all puffed up, right? And so he's all hyper masculine and stuff, and he's like, what? And I said, sir, I just want to talk to you for a second. Now, I'm trying to stall long enough for the voice to give me what to say, and it's not coming. And so then the voice says, open your mouth. So I said, sir, I just want to give you some advice. And so I open my mouth, and this is what comes out. If you want her to grow, you have to give her sunshine, and you have to water her. Now, I repeated, not so that he understood it. I repeated it so I could understand what I was saying, right? So I gave him that piece. And he looked at me kind of puzzled, and then I just said, sir, do you understand? And he stood there for a minute, and then it was almost as if scales fell off of him. He deflated. And he said, yeah, I do. Thanks, sir. Have a great day. Have a great life. I'll see you later. I wasn't trying to give him, my phone number. I didn't want to do any further counseling. I did what the voice had asked me to do. And it took me a long time to figure out why I even had that conversation with that dude. And I don't know, you're probably way smarter than I am, and I probably picked it up right away. What do you think? Why was I compelled to at least intervene in that particular situation? What's that? Because I felt that it was wrong. And ultimately, it was because there was a baby involved. A lot of times what we don't see or we don't think about is that the people that we're working with, we're stuck in an old, or we're fighting against an old mantra. And the old mantra used to say, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Right? And then we move from that mantra to teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. We're now in the stage that we need to teach people how to manage lakes and streams. One of the things that we don't necessarily realize is when we're working with clients, one of the things that we should be doing and are doing is breaking generational curses. That we're breaking generational poverty. We're breaking generational lack of education. We're breaking generations of abuse. When we allow people these opportunities to become healed and become whole people, and we start breaking those things off. And in that particular case, I wasn't just doing it for that couple, but I was doing it because that baby needed to see that there is a world that actually cares about them. There's a world that will stand up for them. There's a world that people who don't even know you can intervene and be a productive individual in your life. And after that experience, it just became so profound for me to be aware of the impact that we're having on people every day. Right? So cool. So let's go back to your handout. So you did the 5 circles. Next to those 5 circles is a really big circle. And let's call this the circle of all human knowledge. Okay, it's a little melodramatic, right? Let's call this the pie of all human knowledge. What I'd like for you to do is I want you to cut yourself a piece of pie relative to what you know of everything there is to know. So all science, all math, all history, all language. I want you to cut yourself a piece of pie of what you know of everything that there is to know. All right? All right. So what are some examples of things that people know? That you know. Math. So you know math. Please raise your hand if you know math as well. All right. Cool. You know how to read. You know how to read. All right. You know how to write. You know how to dress yourself. You said you know how to eat. Well, speak. You know how to speak. All right. So these are things that you know. Right? You know that if you drop your pen, you know that it will fall to the ground because of gravity, right? So there are things that you know for sure. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like for you to create a second piece of this pie, and we will have a third piece as well. But the second piece of the pie, I want you to create a piece of pie that's relative to the size of what you know you do not know. What you are aware of that you do not know. And that is quantifiable. All right? So for example, I know that I do not know Mandarin Chinese. I know that I don't know how to fly an airplane. And I know that I should not be your brain surgeon. You do not want me operating on your brain, right? So those are things that I know. So cut yourself a second piece of pie relative to what you know, do not know. These are things that you're aware of that you do not know. So what are some examples of things that you are aware of that you do not know? What's that? How the universe was made, or what the universe is made of. How to knit. You know you don't know how to knit. There's this new knitting thing that's really cool where you use your arms. You use this really big cable thing, and you can like make sweaters and stuff like in minutes. It's really cool. Right? Yeah, it's awesome. All right? One more thing that you know that you do not know. You do not know how to work a smartphone. You're not alone, sister. Let me tell you. All right? So we have what we know. We have what we know we don't know. And so what do you think is the rest of the pie?
We don't know. We don't know.
What you don't know, you don't know. And it's funny, I did this once, and someone said, hey, you got that from Donald Rumsfeld. I said, you could use it for evil or for good, you decide. Right? And so we have what we know we don't know, and we have what we don't know we don't know. And I'll call this a blind spot. area, the blind spot. So where is the primary, and we'll call this whole thing, we'll call this the circle, we'll call this whole circle, we'll call this a paradigm. And a paradigm is simply the way you see the world. And the way that you see the world dictates what you see. So if I've seen a world, or I've grown up in a world where abuse is normal and regular, then I assume what about other people? That they are abusive as well, right? It's really funny. Liars always assume that everybody is a liar. Thieves always assume that everybody is a thief, right? Because of their paradigm. The way you see the world dictates what it is that you see. Now, here's the interesting thing about a paradigm. Where is the primary place where you have gotten your paradigm? Your family, right? And in particular, which two members of your family, or one member of your family? Your parents, your mom and dad, right? So your mom and dad give you their paradigm. Where did they get their paradigm? From their parents. And where did their parents get their paradigm? From their parents. Has anyone ever made a copy of 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 a copy? What does that 10th generation copy look like compared to the original? It's faded, it's distorted, it doesn't look quite the same. Some of the stuff is pretty legible, but others of it is pretty denigrated, right? And so what our families have done is that they've given us their paradigm. What's the problem with this particular gift that keeps on giving?
Ancient.
What's that?
It's ancient.
It's ancient. What else is problematic about this particular gift? Okay, so you don't learn more than what you already know. If someone came to your dinner party with a pie, where the majority of the pie had already been eaten, what would you think about that? Would you invite that person back to your dinner party? It's more pie. What would you think about that gift? They gave that to you as a gift, and the majority of the pie has already been eaten. And they say, here's a gift. Okay? This paradigm that we've received, the biggest part is that this blind spot is more than the majority of the pie. And our parents have done the best they had with what they had to give us the best kind of life that they could. And every time, it would have been inadequate because they're giving us their paradigm, which is also full of flaws. Right? So, we keep rolling so we can get through some good stuff. Okay. So here's some truths about human beings, human behavior. Human beings can learn, change, and grow. Who I am today is not who I was at 17. Thank God. So we can learn, change, and grow. At any point when we stop believing that about human beings, even when they don't show it to us, it's time for us to retire, cash in, and get our pension. Right? Human beings can always learn, change, and grow, even when they consistently show us that they're not willing to, or that they don't think that they can, but they always can. We have to keep the light on. People do what they think works, even when what? Even when it doesn't work. And why is it that they think that this works? Because it's what they know. What was that? Because they survived it. What else?
They don't know any other option.
They don't know any other option. because it did work at some point. That behavior did work. And so they say, you know, and it's interesting, human beings, we build our learning, we scaffold our learning, right? So we build on our successes. We also build on our failures, but for the most part, we're building on our successes. And so if the behavior was successful in the past, if I come to another situation, and that's a tool that I can use, I can make the assumption that what? So if it's worked in the past, it'll work in the present, which also means that I'll try to use that same behavior in the future. And when do people change their behavior? When do people change their behavior? When they choose to. When they're forced to. The more knowledge they have. When their goal is different. One of the things that you know, people do what they think works even when it doesn't work. People change their behaviors when they recognize that my current behaviors aren't getting me towards my goals, and so something's got to give. Either I got to change my goal or I got to change my behavior. And ultimately, they only change it when they want to. Right? All behavior is goal-directed, so human beings are always doing things for a purpose. My understanding of that purpose is not a prerequisite for them doing a thing. Me agreeing with their goal is not a prerequisite for them doing a thing. But I do have to understand that there is something that they're trying to get through their behavior. Attitude is a reaction to a goal. All too often we get confused by attitudes. We get sucked in by attitudes. But attitudes are only a smokescreen. They're a mask. They're a costume for something deeper. What have you been taught about an attitude? What is an attitude? How many people might have attitudes right now? What's an attitude? You guys deal with any attitudes ever?
A reaction.
So it's a reaction to a goal. All right, what else? It's negative. It's what? Or positive. How do you know somebody's got an attitude? What's that? How they express themselves, body language, personality. Okay, those are all great answers, and those were all inadequate for my parents. Because my parents would say stuff, they would say crazy stuff like, if I didn't respond the way they wanted me to, they'd say, boy, you better fix your face. And so I go, and they send me to my room. Or my mother would, she just cut straight to the chase. She'd say, boy, go to your room till you learn how to act. So I'd be in my room, I'd get my act together, step out into the hallway. To be or not to be. I spent a lot of time in my room. That's not what they were talking about in terms of attitude. And I was somewhat of a slow learner because I didn't get it until I was 17. My dad was my pastor. So growing up, we went to church on Sundays from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. We stopped at 3 o'clock for chicken, not because we're black, but because chicken is delicious. So Sunday, all day church. Friday night, my dad loves me. I asked for the car. What does he say? He says, yes, he loves me. Right? So I get the keys. I'm hanging out with my friends. I fill the car up with gas. I come home before curfew. I toss my dad the keys. And he says, I have what kind of an attitude? I have a good attitude, right? I have a great attitude. What else say about my dad's attitude? It's pretty good too, right? So Friday night, my dad and I are cool. 12:30, my best friend Dexter calls me on Sunday. He says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies? What do I know about Sunday? Church, all day. But I'm 17, I'm invincible, and Jesus is my friend. So I went to my dad, I said, Dad, can I borrow the car? What does he say? Not only does he say no, but he gives me a sermon about how I'm leading people to hell. And so every negative consequence in my household, the ultimate consequence was hell. And either you could go to hell on your own, or he would show you the way. And so as a result of that, I would say my dad had what kind of an attitude? A bad attitude. What would he then say about my attitude? That it's also a bad attitude. Right? So what is it that actually determines one's attitude? Perception. Reaction. Okay. Let's bring it home. How many people have a teenager in your life? A son, daughter, niece, nephew, cousin. Okay. Has this ever played out where the young person goes to an adult and says, "Oh dear, kind, beautiful adult, may I please go to Cindy Whitworth's party? It starts in 5 minutes." And the adult is looking at this kid like, "What are you talking about? You got a C on your report card. Your room is a mess. And you've been fighting with your brothers and sisters. No, you can't go to Cindy's party. What's wrong?" What happens to the kid? Right? They get an attitude. And it's like they gain 5,000 pounds, right? Because you can hear them walking to their room. And then they close the door a little firmer than they should, like they actually own something, right? And so then you're thinking, you're like, you know what? I was a little harsh. Maybe I'm transferring some of my anger from some other place onto the kid. And so you go knock on the kid's door, and the gargoyle dragon ogre inside says, "Right in your mind." And you say, you know what I was thinking? You can go to Cindy's party. You can only stay for an hour and a half. I'll pick you up, drop you off. The great stuff we've already worked on, and your brothers and sisters are just crazy anyway. But you need some time out of the house, so let's make this happen. What happens to that kid? Right? So if they don't get a good attitude, at least it's better than how it was, right? And so that's the time when you get the Facebook password, just so you know. So what makes a difference in the attitude? What's that? Okay, so the parents' attitude changed, and what else? You got what you wanted. You have a good attitude when you get what you want. When you don't get what you want, you have a bad attitude. And so what attitudes tell us is one thing. If people are accomplishing their goals, right? If people are accomplishing their goals. And ultimately, what are human beings' goals? They're looking for significance, belonging, and safety. Significance, belonging, and safety. Significance, belonging, and safety. Significance says that I'm a person with purpose and power, and I'm committed to making sure that and this is one of the things that I typically tell folks. If you've never won anything, you've at least won once. Because out of all of the million cells that could have met the egg, you were the winner. So you've at least won once. So you can keep winning, right? And so we were born because there is something that we can do, something that we can offer. Belonging. We need to be in networks where people understand what I can do and how I can be useful, how I can use my tools. And then safety. We have to be in environments that are physically, emotionally, and spiritually safe for us to express our significance and our relationships with other people. Just a couple of more things. We're going to be done at 8. Is that right? 8:30. Oh, okay. Slow down. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. So let's do this. Can we take like a 4-minute break? All right. So let's take a 4-minute break, and then we'll come back with the second half of this. All right. Great.